Steve, good to see you.
Evening, Mac. Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you too. And Tony, good to see you too. You all right?
Hi, Mac. Yes, thank you very much.
Good.
Alive and kicking.
That's the main thing. We are live and kicking, and we're going to get straight into it. So we're going to be talking today about the IPL, 100, county cricket, and loads of other stuff. So I'll hand it over to you, boys.
Thanks, Mac. So there's been lots of cricket this week, Tony, for us to enjoy and to get our teeth into. Start of two big competitions that are one that's certainly close to our heart and one that's always gets the interest. So the County Championship and the IPL, and there's been a bunch of other bits and pieces happening in the cricket world as well that we can talk about. But talking about the IPL so far, I remember last week I was chuckling to myself as I was watching this week, Tony, when we were saying how good the fielding has become thanks to T20 cricket. And I was certainly watched a game this week where there was some of the most inept fielding I've ever seen in a game. It was absolutely shocking.
They call that the commentator's curse.
They do. It was really funny. I was really laughing. I was thinking about our conversation last time and saying, the fielding's got so sharp. But then I was watching today and there was some brilliant fielding today. There was one of those brilliant, he was saving a four and he stopped it and he was almost touching the rope and he leapt in the air and flicked the ball in, landed and then went round and got it and saved 3 runs in a very, very tight game towards the end of the game. It was a fantastic bit of fielding and some good catching as well today. People running around the boundary and taking diving catches.
Run out that changed the course of a match today. Pant was run out and it cost Delhi the match, I think. He had one stump to out and he hit it.
Yeah, well, and in fact, in the Rajasthan Royals innings as well, Pant fluffed a run out too. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't see that.
The ball was fired into him, and this is obviously when he was wicket keeping, and Unkdat, I think his name is. Well, I can probably pronounce that terribly, but he was powering back for a second run, and Pant took the ball beautifully, and it looked in real time like he swept him out, and he was miles out of his ground, and he was on his knees. But when you saw the replay, Pant hadn't taken the ball, and as he moved his hands towards the stumps, the ball flew out, and he broke the stumps without the ball in his hands. And I'm sure we may return to that subject when we talk about county cricket as well a bit later on.
There was a famous incident this week in the county cricket where the wicketkeeper took the ball with his right hand and the bails off with his left hand.
Yes, I know that. Well, yeah, let's talk about it now. I mean, that was a real. I was really surprised. I mean, also in the state of the game as well. Hampshire was so far ahead in that game as well. Unreal. It wasn't as if it was a nip and tuck match. It was they piled on whatever it was, 600 runs or something. Yeah. 612 for 5, and they had Leicestershire in all sorts of trouble. It was a real lapse of sporting judgment, I felt, by the Hampshire keeper.
The ECC were to make a statement about it, but I haven't seen any statement.
No,
it might be he might be accused of doing what Heath Street was found guilty of this week, but
well, I don't know about that. I don't think I think we ought to say that we don't think the Hampshire captain, the Hampshire wicketkeeper, has done anything like Heath Street.
No. It was a bit near the mark, nevertheless. A sharp practice, I would call it.
It was definitely sharp on-field practice. Yeah, I thought so. For people watching the and listening, you when you're a wicketkeeper and you break the wicket either for a run out or a stumping, you have to have the ball in your hand that you break the stumps with. Now, clearly, usually, of course, the ball is trapped in these 2 big gloves, and the 2 gloves are together, and they sweep the bails off, and it's not a matter of contention. But certainly in the IPL game today, Pant caught the ball to run somebody out and kind of didn't actually keep hold of the ball, and it wasn't in his control when he broke the stumps. And to be fair, he didn't really claim. I mean, I think he let the umpires make the decision, but he wasn't running around celebrating afterwards. In fact, he looked really frustrated. But in the Hampshire-Leicestershire game, the ball was taken in one hand by the wicketkeeper, who then had his hands apart and then broke the stumps with his other. And you can't do that. You have to. It's the ball that has to break the stumps, not just the wicketkeeper's hand. It makes stumpings a lot easier if you could just do that. So, and I think Leicestershire were quite upset. The umpire gave it out, and of course, county cricket, there was no kind of instant replays and things, and and Leicestershire certainly complained to the match referee about that, and I think it probably made the rest of that game quite tricky for those players, because I'm sure that was a matter of some contention. But back to the on-field stuff, I suppose the team I've been probably most impressed with, and if I may say, slightly surprised about so far, has been Royal Challengers Bangalore. So in my pre-tournament preview of the teams, where I looked at some data and things, what struck me about the side was that they were very much, they put a lot of their eggs in the Kohli, AB de Villiers basket, and then a bit more in the Glenn Maxwell basket, and it seemed to me like a bit of a high wire act, where they were going for a few big names to try to carry them through, and in fact, it was one of the lesser heralded players in the first game, Harshal Patel, who took 5 wickets for 27 against the Mumbai Indians, which is obviously a wonderful return. I mean, even none for 27 would be a pretty wonderful return in T20. So taking 5 wickets for 27 was remarkable. And in fact, in the second game that RCB have played, he took 2 for 25 as well. So he's 7 for 52 at the moment in the tournament, which is some going. And then that gave them a very chaseable target, and I think Kohli got a few, and they were over the line in that game. And then the second game.
Sorry, I saw de Villiers kept wicket. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then in the second game, Glenn Maxwell scored a very good 59. Actually, batted very well against Sunrisers Hyderabad. Now, Sunrisers Hyderabad, I tipped pre-tournament. I thought they looked really exciting. And they had a really, really strong looking batting lineup and a very good side, but they just haven't quite managed to get it together. They've lost both of their first 2 games, and are not doing well. They're only just off the bottom of the table by I think at the moment on net run rate. Compared to the Chennai Super Kings, who've only played 1 game. They play the Punjab Kings in the next game. Then everybody will have played 2 games. But so far, only Royal Challengers Bangalore are 2 from 2. Punjab Kings could join them on 2 from 2 as well. But everybody else has had a bit of a mixed start, except for Sunrisers, who got beaten in both games and really never really got. I don't know. I felt the game, the second game, I felt they should have won that, really. To be honest, the game
they had a tremendous start. I mean, Warner got 54 off 37, and Pandit got 38 off 39, and they were in the box seat. Yeah. And then they just fell away.
They did.
Failed. But I read there where Kohli said that as soon as Bairstow was out, the innings seems to fritter away. They seem to. He's batting at 4, I think, isn't he?
He is. He is. Yeah.
And I've always maintained that he should open. That's been my view right from the start. I know he's supposed to be placed good spinners very well, and that's why he's in at 4. But I just feel that his talents are best at number 1 or number 2 opening.
Yeah.
But they should have won that. They had such a good start.
Yeah. I just think, why wouldn't you want Bairstow and Warner to open together? I mean, why would you not want to do that if you've got them in your side?
Probably destructive if they both went. I couldn't see. It would put especially with the power play. I mean, they're both so strong that they can clear the ropes and certainly clear the inner fielding, and they would score a lot of runs in the first power play, I think.
Yeah.
But the other thing in the IPL is the continuing lack of form of Morgan. In the 2 matches he's played, I think he scored 11, I think, in one and 7 in the other.
Yeah.
And both times was at such a time when he was needed to sort of, if you like, cement the innings, and he failed. I mean, okay, it was his superb captaincy that won the first game for them, because they looked all over to be beaten, but he managed to put the pressure on with astute field placing, and they scraped through. but his personal form is, I would say, worrying for himself.
Yeah, yes, it's not been good. I mean, as I say, when in my pre-tournament look, I was really quite worried about his team, the Kolkata Knight Riders. I didn't think they had a lot in their squad. Certainly not as much, and it really was going to be down to Morgan's Brearley-like abilities to conjure something out of a situation and have seen everything and do everything. And as I made the point in my article, which is on Medium, if anyone wants to read it. Is that he makes more of a contribution than Brearley did. I mean, Brearley was not a test level player, I don't think, and he used to open the batting usually almost sort of to get him out of the way. But Morgan is definitely a better player than that, and definitely can contribute more. But in the first two games, he hasn't with the bat. So yeah, he's under a bit of pressure to score some runs, I think. And to contribute, and indeed, if the KKR are going to get anything out of this tournament and get anywhere near qualifying, they're going to need him to fire a bit in the middle order, I think. But talking of the England players or the players that play for England, at least a couple of people I wanted to mention. One who's had a terrific start to the tournament is Chris Woakes. Absolutely brilliant. Didn't really come into the tournament with anything that you could point your finger at and say was T20 form. He hasn't played a huge amount of T20.
He hasn't played full stop.
And he hasn't played full stop in the winter. And his first match, Delhi Capitals game, where he took 2 for 18 in 3 overs, which was terrific. How and why he wasn't bowled out in that game, I simply do not know. Some slightly odd captaincy going on there from Brisbane.
Comparisons are perhaps unfair, but I don't know if you saw the last match where the Delhi lost in the last over, where Tom Curran was bowling the last over and went for 2 sixes in 3 balls, and if you want to compare the two for the one position in the England T20 team, to my mind, there's not a question to answer. He's both better with the bat and the ball.
Yeah, that Tom Curran over this evening was quite disappointing. Pant must have been hugely disappointed because he bowled 2 waist high full tosses effectively at Morris, who was going at some rate. I mean, okay, we had a look at whether or not Morris was worth the extortionate money that's being paid for him.
Well, they got a win out of it, and he was instrumental because once Miller was out, it looked odds on the Delhi Chiefs winning, but Morris got them over the line.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Morris did. But again, in that last over, I mean, he did well. He took them into the last over. What they needed 12 to win off the last over, I think.
Yeah,
and then. Yeah, Tom Curran bowling. It was an opportunity for Curran. I mean, it was a pretty thankless task to defend 12 in that over, actually. But 2 waist high full tosses in the first 3 balls were always going to be dispatched. But somebody with such power hitting was always going to take him to the cleaners, unfortunately. So, but Woakes bowled very well again today. Really, looked like a good player. So Woakes is on fire so far. It looks like he's enjoying himself as well, which is great. But the other great English all-rounder who's out there is of course Ben Stokes. Now he's broken his hand, unfortunately, and he's going to miss the rest of the tournament.
Finger. I saw that he broke it trying to catch. I don't know who it was. It was a good catch, I think, but I don't think he realised. I saw him. I saw pictures of him afterwards. He was shaking the hand and the finger. I don't think he thought it was broken at the first, but it's the index finger of his left hand, I think.
Yeah.
And of course,
which means he won't be able to grip the bat with that break in his finger. And
I know he's out. He's out for the foreseeable future.
Yeah,
I'd say 2+ months anyway.
Yeah, that's a shame. So I wonder if that puts his participation in the first test of the summer in doubt as well. Potentially,
I would say so. Yes, I would say so.
Yeah. So I think he was still there. He was in the crowd today when Rajasthan Royals were getting over the line against Delhi Capitals today. But you would imagine he would come back to the UK at some point. And then I guess there's the question of would the Rajasthan Royals replace him in the squad? Well, I guess the interesting thing is, of course, is they were using Stokes to open in the first game. So if they're looking for somebody to open the innings, there's a certain Mr. Hales kicking around without a franchise at the moment, and I'm wondering if he might be an option.
Well, I think I was of the opinion that they chose Miller to replace him. Was Miller in the original squad?
Yeah, Miller was in the original squad. Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, they just picked him for this game then, out of the squad, Miller, because he didn't play in the first match, I don't think.
No, I guess that's you can only play 4 overseas players in one game. So I guess one of them. I always have some that have to miss out. But interesting to see what happens. So Rajasthan Royals, I have to say again, I didn't fancy them much before the tournament, and they've got one win and one defeat so far. So they will be absolutely buoyed up today with their victory. They would have been really, really buzzing with that, and see what that does for them. So at the moment, RCB, Virat's boys, doing well. Sunrisers Hyderabad, David Warner's team, as we say, Johnny Bairstow in that side and so on. Not so far having a great time, but it's only the first 2 games. There's plenty of cricket to go, and it'll probably take at least another week before things begin to settle down and teams start to stratify in the league. But certainly so far it's been fun. What was interesting today in that Delhi Capitals Rajasthan Royals game was you had to wait till really quite deep into the game before the first 6 was scored. Yes. And Delhi Capitals didn't clear the rope once. It was only once Morrison started batting, I think, that the 6s started, and then he made up for it by scoring them fairly rapidly. But that was quite not something you see very often in the IPL. Is a game with a very low count of 6s. But certainly leading on from talking about that and talking about Stokes. Better news for Ben Stokes today, or late last night, was the announcement of the 2021 Wisden Cricketers of the Year list, and for the second year running, and I think for the first time ever for the second year running, Stokes has been named Wisden's Cricketer of the Year again, which is obviously no mean feat. Now, the Wisden is published in England, so it has a fairly Anglo focus on it. As when we talk about the players of their kind of 5 players of the year that they always pick. So clearly there's a bit of a slant towards England and England Test players here. But Stokes' record: 641 Test runs in the year, averaging 58, 19 wickets at average of 18 or just under 19. Yeah. So absolutely tremendous all-round performance.
And that was despite having personal tragedy in that his father got a tumour on the brain and died from it.
Yes,
and
indeed.
He had to go to New Zealand.
Indeed, yes, and had that to contend with, and overshadowing probably his sporting thoughts and disrupting his training and all of those things, and as well as a lot travelling to New Zealand and things. So Stokes, well done on him. So a bit of a shame that he got that boost and then he's unable to, use that to power his performances in the IPL and to really, puff his chest out and play, because obviously it's quite an accolade being the Player of the Year, and it's a long illustrious list of people that have been on that list, and he got it 2 years running, which nobody else has managed to do. So that's pretty impressive. But I thought the rest of the list was really quite interesting. 2 England Test players, 2 tourists, and 1 county stalwart. Let's talk about the county stalwart first. Darren Stevens, Kent all-rounder.
44 years of age.
44 years of age. Yeah.
Well, he got 29 wickets at 15.
Yeah.
I think that was and he certainly held up, or shall we say, raised Kent in extreme circumstances. He's been playing very well over a number of years, defying his age. And of course, since then, he's gone out and scored 100, which has just sort of cemented it. No, I think it's a difficult one. I mean, I suppose if you factor in his age And it was an extraordinary Bob Willis trophy that he had, which it was which resulted in that outcome, and probably for that reason deserved. The next two I would have some discussion about. They were awarded their honours on the basis of one innings each. Crawley on the magnificent 267, but little else. And Sibley on 120 in 9 hours versus the West Indies, which is okay. It's an above average bowling attack, but it's not the best bowling attack in the world. And so they've given them those honours on purely, to my mind, on one innings, which I find remarkable, shall we say.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of the opposite to Darren Stevens. I mean, Darren Stevens has played 309 first-class matches, 314 limited over games, and 212 T20s. So he's 15,800 runs first-class cricket, plus another 7,000 in limited overs, plus another 4,001 in T20s. 548 wickets, plus 160, plus 114. So really, Stevens got his. I mean, yes, last season he actually was a standout performance. Those 29 wickets at 15 was brilliant. But it's also a recognition, I think, of a long career, Leicestershire and then Kent, with a real kind of second act career, which has been absolutely fantastic. And he's I don't think certainly since he's been at Kent, I don't think he's ever had a poor season. I mean, I think he's been magnificent. So, but you're right. So comparing that to Crawley, and I can kind of understand Crawley getting on the list. Because that really was the innings of the summer. I mean, that really was a very, very good innings.
Yes, but does one innings entitle you to that honour? I mean, if you had 6 ducks and then scored 269, would you be in the row for that? I find Sibley's even more astonishing.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about them both, and as you know, Tony, I recently put up an article on Medium looking at England's performance during the World Test Championship, and one of England's real weaknesses, actually, one of the reasons why they didn't really, in the end, threaten the top 3. I mean, they could have. I mean, they did well to take it to the last game in India, where if they'd have won, or penultimate game in India, where if they'd won, they could have still got to the final. But really, they were probably a step behind Australia, India, and New Zealand in terms of quality across the tournament. And really, the weakness in England, it was England's batting, and the weakness in England's batting is the top 3 don't score enough runs and they don't bat for long enough. And so the likes of England's very strong middle order of Root and then Stokes and then Pope and then Butler, which is Butler batting at 7 is a very strong batting lineup. Root's coming in the first 15 overs of a game, and
he may as well be opening, really.
Yeah, so I suppose you always could say is that I wonder what Root thinks about 2 of his erstwhile top 3 getting cricketers of the year, and I mean, because I think Root had a pretty fine year, I don't know. Sibley, I think, played more than anybody else, and over the year he played in. I think he played every game throughout the year.
He did score quite a few county runs before he got selected for England. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think that he would need to. He's got it all to do, in my opinion, this year. He's a solid player, but don't forget he didn't make it. What was his first county? And he didn't make it there before he moved counties.
I don't know. I mean, he was at Surrey, and I think it was more of a. I mean, there's a little bit more of a transfer market, as it were, in cricket, and than there used to be. Never used to happen. Very, very rarely used to happen.
Yeah.
Occasionally, someone like Ray Illingworth, aged 45, would move from Yorkshire to Leicestershire to captain them in a difficult period or whatever. Occasionally, you'd get people moving counties, but it really was, people generally stayed where they played, other than the overseas pros who sometimes used to move around. But even then, if you say Courtney Walsh, you think Gloucestershire. You say Marshall and Greenwich, you think Hampshire. You say, it's when Durham came on the scene, of course they recruited quite a few pros from other places. Simon Hughes from Middlesex, and both of them from Worcestershire at the time. He moved around a bit. He'd been at Somerset before that, but Yeah, but Sibley was at Surrey, and then I think looked for a better deal and a new contract, and was offered a better deal and a new contract at Warwickshire, and I think the same happened with Will Jacks as well. I think is he there too? I think I might be getting that wrong. I might be mixing my wills up actually.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't back you up there.
No, yeah. So I think I might be mixing my wheels up there actually. Apologies to Will Jackson. Yeah, I'm mixing up Will Jackson, Will Rhodes, but yeah, there's a few. I mean,
he took a bag full of wickets today, Will Rhodes.
Yeah. But then of course, so looking at the Warwickshire team, I think they are a little bit more of a signing team than others. They've got Tim Bresnan this season. They've got Danny Briggs, who's moved there from Sussex. Liam Norwell, I think, was elsewhere before. So they've got a few people that they've signed in, and
but still probably what I would call journeyman cricketers.
Yeah, arguably. I mean, county pros, probably most of them aren't. None of them are really looking to trouble the England selectors, but certainly pros. But I think, what I would say is, I think probably for me, I think Sibley had one very notable innings for Surrey. I think he scored very big runs in one innings and batted for a very long time. And I think Surrey fans were really quite excited about the prospect and were really quite disappointed when he announced he was moving to Warwickshire. I think they were quite sorry to see him go actually. So probably, I wouldn't say he probably failed at Surrey. I think but I'm not sure he left with everyone's best wishes, so to speak. But
well, I look at it this way: if Surrey had wanted to keep him, I'm sure they could have matched the offer that was made to him.
Possibly, yeah. You would have thought so. Sorry, not a team who usually struggle to keep and or attract big names themselves. But moving away from Crawley and Sibley and Stevens as these players, the other two on the Wisden list, I think, are players I can get on board with. Jason Holder is the first one. So he was the captain of the West Indies when they toured. He's relinquished that now to Braithwaite, but he was great this summer. I thought he bowled really well, captained really well, and batted well as well. I mean, he's a good all-rounder.
He captained well too in a period of great tension, as erupts in the West Indies from time to time, when there seems to be disputes between the players, the boards, and the various islands. And he was made captain at a very, very difficult time, and I thought made a top-class job of it. I saw him bowling this week in the IPL, and he looked very good even there.
Yeah, no, he's a terrific player, and I think what's interesting, Wisden also noted his approach and his stance on Black Lives Matter, which was obviously a very much an issue that was prominent at the point that the West Indies were touring, and the way that he led that for his team and so on as well, which is interesting that Wisden also picked that up as one of the reasons why they made him one of the cricketers of the year, which I think is great. But certainly, I've got no trouble with Jason Holder. Middlesex were to announce they were signing Jason Holder, I'd be very pleased. But that's not going to happen this year. But no, and he's certainly a player I enjoy watching, and I'm looking forward to watching him in the IPL as well. And then the last one on the list is Mohammad Rizwan, the Pakistan wicket-keeper batsman, who's had a terrific year. I mean, he can't stop scoring runs. Really, really good behind the stumps. I really liked him. He really stood out for me when Pakistan played here, and I thought he looked like a really talented cricketer and a real kind of personality on the pitch as well for them, and looks to me like a future captain.
Well, I was lucky enough to see the last T20 for Pakistan against South Africa. And South Africa racked up 203, I think it was, for 5. Markham got 63 in 31. And Milan, whether he's related to Dawi Milan, I don't know, got 55 of 40 and set Pakistan a huge score. And Rizwan and Azam, Azam scored 122 in 59 balls. And Rizwan scored 73 not out in 47 balls, and they racked up 205 for 1 off 18 overs to win the match. And it was poetry to watch the two of them. It really was. And I learned subsequently that Babar Azam has now replaced Kohli, as the number one ODI player in the world. Kohli has held that post for nearly 5 years, and to knock him off it, I think, is a fantastic performance. You know, and then another man who's made it from Pakistan, I was quite impressed with this man as well. I'd be careful how I pronounced him. Fakhar, I think, is his. He scored 193 in the second ODI and followed it up with 101 in the third ODI. Wow. And he's made it into the top 10. So Pakistan, I think, are on the way back. And as ever, when the World Cup comes around, Pakistan come to the fore. And I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I thought last summer they looked like they had the makings of a good side. Lots of young players, obviously Shah, the fast bowler, who's very young.
Yeah, very good.
And Shaheen Afridi as well, who's old compared to Nadim Shah, Shah, but he's certainly not old at all.
Afridi's made it into the top 10 bowling, I think, as well, ODI. He's doing very well.
Yeah, so I think there was an element of finding the right balance for the team and maybe one or two selections they needed to work out. But they certainly had some excellent players, and I thought had real makings of a terrific test side, but also a one-day side. And Rizwan is certainly at the heart of that. And great. I'm glad he's been recognised. I think that's wonderful. I think he was one of the stars of the summer, and he certainly deserved it for his all-round performances. So. So Babar Azam as well, great. Again, we waxed lyrical about him last summer, and we thought he looked really good and was a really classy player. And the perennial question is, people talk about the big four of Root and Williamson and Smith and Kohli, and really we should probably talk about a big five, because I think Babar Azam is every bit as good as those players. And I think when my article that looks at the teams that didn't or weren't in contention for the World Test Championship final, so the kind of 5 teams that weren't really close to it, I think Babar Azam really stands out as one of the few really top class batsmen in those sides, along with probably Dean Elgar of South Africa.
Interestingly, well, I'd call Smith, he was the captain. The other 3 are captains of their country.
Yeah. Yeah, Smith's probably the past and future captain of Australia, as we discussed.
Well, I think so. I think if rumour is right, and Smith will assume the mantle this year, I suspect.
Yeah. I wonder if I might be waiting for the Ashes series before they return him to the helm of Australia cricket.
You can be sure the English press will give it all the attendant publicity that they can manage if he is reinstated as captain.
Absolutely. I'm sure they will. Excellent stuff. So a couple of other things to talk about. Of course, the county championship, as we trialled at the start, also started this week, and obviously one game in, or so we're into the first day of the second set of games today. But I was interested. I picked out a few players last week. And obviously it's only one game and you can't draw too much from it, but certainly a couple of people have done quite well. Jordan Cox of Kent, he did quite well. He got 62 in his first knock and another 18 in the second knock for Kent, so that was a pretty good start. Ben Duckett hasn't done too much yet. He scored 17 today. Poor old Tom Lammonby got the curse of the commentator from me, I'm afraid.
Today.
He got 5 and then consecutive ducks so far. So he'll be hoping for a fast turnaround. With the ball, my bowlers have not done too bad. Amar Verdi took 3 for 109 in the match. So going at 36, and he bowled quite a tight spell today, I think. And Ed Barnard, who I picked out, again, he's taken 3 wickets for 117, but he also scored 128 with a bat. So I'm claiming that one, even though I didn't pick him as a batsman. That was his first class 100 and obviously his highest score. So he'll be thrilled with how his season started. And I think it was Jake Libby for Worcestershire as well, who scored very big runs for them, and they got off to a flyer. And then my last player that I picked was Jordan Thompson of Yorkshire, who's a kind of perhaps not exactly on the fringes of the Yorkshire team, but isn't necessarily a stick-on pick. He didn't play the first game, but he's playing in the game that's now on at the moment against Kent. So I think he was batting today. I think he has certainly got 30 odd, I think, by stumps today. So he'll sleep well tonight, having made a contribution.
Yeah, well, a couple of things stood out for me. The first one was Joe's brother Billy Root, scoring a ton against Yorkshire and actually getting his 100th run off the bowling of Joe, which I thought was, but he batted very well. The other I thought was a very good performance by Lewis Gregory of Somerset, who you cautiously, being a Middlesex fan, didn't mention the fact that they knocked off 280 something to beat Middlesex. But he shone with both bat and ball. And if he continues that start, he will be possibly a name to bring in. And of course, with all our abundance of wicket keepers, I saw that Folkes scored 100, despite the fact that Surrey lost. It was a very good innings. And the other thing that's happened today is a bowler who a few years ago I thought might force his way into the England setup, but didn't do so, and is now sadly 34 years of age. But he was instrumental for today for Durham in bowling Essex out for 96. And last year I looked up, and well, in his career he's taken 514 wickets at 22.8 and an economy rated 2.98. And yet, I mean, and he has had his heyday for Durham 2 or 3 years ago, but has never managed to get in a squad, I don't think, let alone anywhere near the test team. The other last one that I noticed.
You didn't say who it was, Tony.
Oh, sorry, did I not? Chris Rushworth.
Chris Rushworth
of Durham. The other star performer, I thought, is one of your babes, I would call it, Ollie Robinson, who took 4 for 41 for Sussex. And as you say, whilst it's early days, and of course it snowed at some of the matches, but what has surprised me is there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 centuries in the first round of the county championship, which is a staggering amount. When I thought the ball might seam around and give batsmen a lot of difficulty, only today, with Essex being bowled out for 96, does that appear to have come to fruition. And even today, there were a couple of people who got into the 90s. Lyth got 97, and Deploy, who I presume is a South African playing for Derby, he got 98. So it's kicked off well, but I still have the reservations about it kicking off too early. It's too difficult for the spin bowlers. We'll just have to wait and see. Although maybe we'll get a bit of I mean, I don't know what it's like down in most of the country, but the weather here has been superb today. So we just have to wait and see.
I think they got a full day in everywhere but Surrey. I think it rained at the Oval today, but
did it?
Certainly there was no call for the snowplow like there was last week.
No.
I think both at Edgbaston and at Glamorgan, I think there was literally coverings of snow on the pitches, which was ridiculous. Asking that having starting the county season when. So an interesting fact I saw today, and I saw it on Twitter, so it may or may not be a fact, but I thought it was interesting that both the county championship. I think the county championship started in 1890, and the Sheffield Shield in Australia started in 1892. And today was the first day ever that Sheffield Shield matches and county championship matches were on the same day, because there's a New South Wales game today in the Sheffield Shield. So I hope that's true. I haven't done any in-depth research on it, but it sounds like a good fact. And by
good
God, I'm going to say it.
Stat.
I'm going to say it. No, you mentioned, you're right, I did slightly glide over Middlesex's defeat to Somerset, and I know you did very, very bravely mention Essex's complete collapse today. I think in that game, actually, Middlesex were collapsed quite a lot in the second innings and were bowled out quite quickly, and didn't really score enough runs the second time out. And Somerset batted very well to chase that target down. I think George Bartlett and Stephen Davis, I think, were in the middle order that saw them home. Really, really very well played to Somerset. But Middlesex in that game again, I was interested. I don't think they went in with a spinner. I think they had an all-pace attack in that game. The game that they've started today against Hampshire, they've they've got Nathan Souter, the leg spinner, playing. But interestingly, the very first wicket today Middlesex took was an absolutely wonderful stumping by Simpson, standing up to Ethan Bamber, the quick seam bowler, and he took a wonderful stumping. If you haven't seen it on social media, Tony,
I haven't seen it. No,
I thoroughly recommend it. And there was also apparently a very, very good Souter's wicket where he bowled one of the Hampshire batsmen was a beauty from a leg spinner. Unfortunately, I'm not sure who the umpire is in that game, but he's quite large. You can't actually see. You can't actually see the ball or the shot from the camera angle from the live coverage, unfortunately. So I would love to say I could describe the beautifully flighted delivery and where it pitched and turned and all that to you, but unfortunately because of the angle of the camera and the size of the umpire, I'm afraid I couldn't quite give you a match report on that one. But certainly the county games it's great that it's got going. I say some people that have started well, some people that will be looking for to make a bit of an impression. But like the IPL, it's early days. I've had 4 days of cricket so far, a 5th day today, and there's plenty more to come.
Can I just mention one other thing on the ground? The other cricketer that Wisdom mentioned was Beth Mooney of Australia, who won the Ladies Award. Her latest episode was to score 78 off 54 balls at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And anybody who thinks that there isn't a future in women's cricket has to look at the attendance at that match. It was 86,000 people.
Fantastic.
And I think that must be the greatest shot in the arm for women's cricket of all time. I was delighted that Beth Mooney, who has played many a good innings in the last 2-3 years, was given that award.
Yeah.
To play in front of 86,000 crowd at the MCB must be a daunting experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's good. And I also think this last week, they announced there was going to be at least one test between England and India, women's teams this summer as well coming up. So that again, more long form cricket for women's cricket, I think is a good thing.
One further point I'd like to make that Wisdom drew attention. They gave the T20 award to Pollard, and they quoted a few stats of Pollard's. He has scored 59 sixes, one for every 5.5 balls faced. He has hit a six, and his strike rate, wait for it, is 199.07. And his average, so he didn't get it by sort of coming in at number 8 or number 9 and knocking a few runs around. His average is 53.58. And if anybody merited a T20 Player of the Year, I think those stats stand for themselves. Quite astounding.
That's brilliant.
He's playing in the IPL, I believe.
He is, yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how he performs when he settles down.
Yep. No,
he won both. He was in the winning team for both the CPL and the IPL last year.
Yeah. No, he's a good player. He's a very good player. Kieran Pollard, yeah, definitely good player. So that's a lot of the cricket covered. There's two other things, kind of off-field bits of news to talk about this week, and both of them are perhaps a bit more controversial. One which is arguably a confected thing, and one which is much more serious, and that's Heath Streak, the former Zimbabwe fast bowler and captain, who was found guilty of match fixing or certainly not reporting approaches from a bookmaker. I think to be absolutely accurate. I think they may have said he didn't fix matches. Actually, I think in the judgment, I think it said that it was dealing and providing information to bookmakers and so on.
Information, that was the term used.
Yeah,
I found that very sad because Heath Streak was foremost in keeping Zimbabwe in the higher echelons of Test cricket during his career, and performed with merit. And it just goes to show the temptations that beset the modern cricketer and the pressures that gamblers can put upon them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, I think he was acting as an intermediary, trying to introduce a particular person to other players and so on. And shame. But I guess it's good that these things, when they get found out,
he's got. I mean, okay, his career is over, but he's been given a very severe penalty there.
He has,
and rightly so.
Yeah, and I guess it means for him, obviously, he's past playing these days, but it means he now isn't able to take up any of the lucrative coaching, fast bowling coaching contracts around the world and things, and that's a shame for him.
And commentating will be beyond him. He won't be acceptable.
Yes, I guess so.
Arena.
I guess so. No, that's a shame. So that's obviously quite serious. But the other thing, which is probably, certainly in comparison, is less serious, is it was 100 days until the 100 this week.
Yes.
The new slap and tickle tournament in the middle of the English summer, 100 balls. And the big reveal with 100 days to go was that they're going to stop referring to wickets and start referring to outs. And I just wondered what your traditionalist take on that was, Tony.
Well, I don't know. I think that the 100, and I can't necessarily agree with this approach, is trying to prove that they are different to any or everybody else in the abbreviated form of the game. And this change of the word wicket allegedly is because, it'd be interesting to see what Malcolm would think about this. Allegedly, that those who are, shall we say, on the fringes of watching the game would understand more the term out rather than that's another wicket gone, for instance.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'd be interested to hear what Malcolm thinks on that.
Yeah, I'm here. Look, I don't think it really makes a difference. I think when you approach a different game to what maybe you're used to, you get used to the terms, and you ask them. And usually, when they're introducing a new format, anyway, don't they usually have some sort of kind of break in between, or some introduction in between, or some commentary, which explains it all? So I don't think it makes that much of a difference, to be honest. When you follow tennis, it's completely different, and it can be confusing to people. And then obviously there's football, there's hockey, netball, basket. You could just go on forever. So I think the term should stay exactly as they were.
Yeah,
I feel that those organising the 100 are in danger of overcomplicating the system. I mean, the cricket aficionados will follow it all right, but it is quite a complicated setup. The option to bowl 10 balls or 5 balls or whatever it might be, it's complicated enough. And without the only thing is that when you go to test matches now and you see the big screens, when the third umpire has to make a decision, it comes up out. And when you see a referral, say for instance for a catch behind or something, it comes up again out. So probably that's what they have in their mind, that they'll be consistent and drop the word wicket. But what are they going to say then if somebody wins with 2 batsmen spare, that they've won by 2 outs? Is that what they're going to say, or are they going to say they've won by 2 wickets?
Presumably, yeah. Presumably they'll have won by, or maybe they win by a number of balls. I don't know. I think so. I think one of the reasons is because the term wicket means more than one thing in cricket. I think that was what they were. So they were trying to streamline it. Because obviously the wicket is the 5 bits of wood that are in the ground, and often erroneously ascribed to the pitch itself as well. But it's a fairly common use of the term wicket, isn't it? It's
a turning wicket, spinner's wicket.
So I think maybe so that people were clear, who were new to the game, what was being referred to when people were using the term wicket or using it, whatever. I suppose
Malcolm's view probably is right. It really doesn't really make too much difference.
No, I suppose that the couple of things that struck me about it, and one of these I have to say, probably I think the best cricket journalist to follow on Twitter, Lizzie Ammon, she made the point which I thought was quite interesting. That so if part of the point of the 100 is to attract new people to the game, and you've got a youngster that goes to the game and they watch the 100 and they start to talk about outs, and then they get attracted to go and join their local cricket club, and they go to the local cricket club. The local cricket club's probably not going to start talking about outs. They're going to start talking about wickets. So, has it been entirely thought through in that respect? And the other thing I was thinking, and again, having watched the IPL, and frankly, they've changed the terminology in the IPL quite a bit. I certainly remember that they referred to sixes for a long time as maximums.
Yeah.
And they referred to them as maximums because they were sponsored. And they were sponsored by a company called DLF. You see, I can remember it, so it obviously worked. And they used to refer to DLF maximums. I think they now call them, I think the current sponsor is Unacademy maximums or Unacademy sixes. So I'm just wondering if by branding them as outs, it means that it's easier to get them sponsored. And that they might be able to bring in a, bacon frazzles out or something to bring the crisp sponsorship theme through to, a Quavers out or something.
God help us.
But I'm just wondering if that's part of it, is to have that kind of slight branding.
The amount of money that the sponsors can provide and bring and visibility is huge. And we've always talked about the commercialization of all sports, but primarily here cricket. And I've seen it a lot. Obviously, I love soccer, but tennis as well. I've seen so many things tried and tested. Some have worked, some haven't. But ATP finals, that in itself is entirely set up as a major, even though it's not a major, but it's indoors, and I've been to it, and it's completely set up so that it's very much accessible. So there's a lot, every point or any kind of, disputed point, there's a lot of time taken and to explain and obviously a build up to it and everything like that. And there's a lot more excitement involved. And that's what they want. The 100 is supposed to be exciting. Remember, no one really has any loyalty to a team. Their parents haven't been loyal to a team like soccer or anything like that. So they're coming to the game cold. They're going to pick a team maybe on colour or who's the best players. But they're going to be always bombarded with commercialization because that's normal now. I watch, if you watch any American sports, which I don't know if you do, literally every 2 to 3 minutes, a kind of advert or something flashes up or some sort of product placement. That's the way we're going, boys.
I like to watch the rodeo on Sky Sports 24 or 27 or 39 or something, and even the rodeo guys are sponsored to within an inch of their lives. They're like racing cars. It's really quite funny.
So this is the way cricket is going to get more people to it. That's the bottom line.
I noticed even in the IPLs today, the strategic timeouts are sponsored. I mean, they've taken a strategic time out, and you actually get the sponsor's name with the clock ticking down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That's the end of the timeout, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think all of that will come in the 100. I mean, maybe not in year one. They might need to prove the concept to sponsors first.
But of course, you've got to remember, in India, there's a huge audience, absolutely huge. They don't even need a global audience. They've got enough in India itself.
Yeah, it's a massive. Well, everybody in India watches the IPL. It's a 1 billion person market for Indian products. So it's a big deal. And indeed, you can see by the number of sponsors logos on the players' shirts as well. There's probably 2 sleeve sponsors, a chest sponsor, as well as a main sponsor.
It rivals Formula One in that aspect. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, look, even a sport, if you could call it that, some people would dispute it. It's darts. Look at darts. When it started out, now look at it. Sponsors to an inch of their life on their T-shirt, on their polo shirt. So it's exactly the same. So it's just part and parcel of sport. If you're going to pay the big money, you've got to find the money from somewhere. You can't just rely on TV money. It's got to come from sponsors and whatever else. So there you go. It's just normal.
Yeah.
And I think the younger generation are happy to accept it as well. That's the difference. I think the way that sometimes, obviously, we look at it, maybe our generation and older, is that we grew up in many
Thanks for
ways.
that, Malcolm.
Well, think about it. You think about when we were growing up, there were only 3 channels, and then Channel 4 came. Wow. Channel 5, no way. Sky TV, what's that? So, obviously kids these days have smartphones, and we didn't grow up with them. So we're obviously much older. So it's just, my point is, it's part and parcel of life that you're going to see some sort of commercial to watch anything. So it's, and that's the way it is. And I think it will work for the 100. I think people are coming to it, and the generation who come to it will come to it and see it as part and parcel of the 100. They won't come into it and think, oh, almost like you say about Test cricket. Well, why is Test cricket having all these adverts and all this sponsorship and all this product placement? Whilst 100 you can do that with, because it's like a blank sheet of paper, right? So that's how I see it, as someone from the outside looking in.
We'll get you to a game yet, Mac.
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
Sports Fans TV cricket fan show away day at one of the cricket grounds.
Definitely. That'll be brilliant. And also, we'll definitely do some live ones as well. That'll be good. So
Great
is that
stuff.
everything?
Yeah, I think that covers most of the on-field and off-field stuff for this week, the big stories anyway. So loads of cricket to come. Obviously, the days 2 to 4 of the next round of the county championship is on at the moment, and we'll see who emerges from that with some good performances. And the IPL, by this time next week, every team will probably have played 4 games maybe, and that will then start to shake up the table a little bit. We'll start to see, how it's, as I say, how it begins to stratify and what have you. I think a big game coming up between Punjab Kings and Chennai Super Kings, because I think Chennai look to me like if they lose that game, then I think
relegation fodder. They would say yes.
Yeah, I didn't think they looked like a great squad before the tournament, and I thought they looked like they were too many players that were at the end of their career, such that they were all peaked maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Right. And I think the T20 game has moved on in that time, and I don't think they score quite enough runs. And I'm not sure they're a well-tooled team to compete against some of the other sides in the IPL. But who knows? It's all a matter of degree, and there's nothing to say a Dhoni or somebody isn't going to explode to life and score lots of runs. So you never quite know. But I think a big game for Chennai Super Kings particularly coming up, because I think if they lose that, then it could be panic stations in Chennai. But so plenty to look forward to for next week. I'll try and get on the old Twitter machine myself when I'm watching games and
I'll put it at the bottom for everybody to see.
Yeah, fantastic. And to say, I put up another article this week about Australia in the World Test Championship. And I think a bit of an in-depth look at Australia's opening partnerships as well, because it's been really quite interesting how much David Warner has succeeded and how far everybody else hasn't. And that was really quite interesting. Plus a bit of a look at their bowling attack, which is really fantastic, but is aging all at the same time. And I think that could be a potential issue for Australia in the coming years. So lots in there for people to enjoy, particularly if they're Australia fans. And next week's one will be the article on New Zealand.
Brilliant. And I'll make sure that it's in the notes as well, so that people can refer to that as well.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah. So that's us for this week. Tony,
thank you.
Yep.
Hope Essex get a bit better this game.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, boys. That's been brilliant. And thank you for such a thorough chat about all the things that are going on, from the top to bottom to the disappointing news that you talked about, and all the good things that happen as well. So we are approaching the end of the soccer season, and we are kind of shuttling forward to the cricket season, and it's already started, obviously, with IPL and the county cricket, but let's hopefully see some great stuff. So we'll be back again on Thursday. So we're back on Thursdays now. I know we've been on Wednesdays before, but come join us on Thursdays, 8 p.m. We're going to be here all through the spring and summer. Steve and Tony giving their insight and filling us with knowledge. So leave some comments. For anyone who's joined, thank you so much.